Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today I want to talk about how does FFG generally handle powerful decks, powerful combos, things like that. Many players who are playing Destiny are new to FFG games, and so I think this video will be helpful to give you just an idea of how they may react to any situation. For now, it seems to be Pomaz, but who knows what that could be in the future. So this is not a video about Pomaz. It's more a video just about how FFG operates. Okay, so the main way in which they handle really troublesome combinations has, in my experience, been with some sort of what they call a restricted list, where what they'll often do is say, okay, you can use any card you want, but you cannot use these two cards together. So let's say it was deemed that Vader and Force Strike were a real problem. And okay, do we ban this card? Do we errata it? One of the main methods would be just to simply say, here are a list of cards. Vader and Force Strike cannot go together. Poe and Maz cannot go together. And Palpatine and Holocron or something. But the problem is, they're all on the list together, and so none of those cards can be played together. This was a huge thing they did in Game of Thrones. By the end of 1.0, the restricted list was enormous. All these cards are on it because you have this ginormous card pool without rotation, and they had to have a way to say, okay, these following combos are broken together. Additionally, in the Star Wars LCG, they had to do this for a couple of cards, and in Netrunner, they did something really cool, which is something I could see maybe happening with Destiny, where what they said is basically you get 15 of these sort of out of faction points, and some cards, even if they're in faction, count towards that total, and others count more towards that total. So it was a way to basically say, yeah, you can have broken cards in your deck, but you only get so many of them. Instead of having 8 of them, you're only going to get 3 of them or 4 of them. So a really interesting system they could do with Destiny, which might be too punitive, would be something like it costs a build point or whatever. Like, okay, Fast Hands is really good. It's a really good card. So if you want it, that's a build point. Now your deck can only be 29 points. I'm not proposing that this is what they will do. I'm saying this is something they could do in the future. Definitely I could see a restricted list at some point. I also think it's too early for that. Another main way of fixing cards was to limit them. Oftentimes with Game of Thrones cards, it got to the point where they just started with limit 3 per round on them because it was just too much to have these infinite combo kind of things. And so this is what we saw already with the Smuggler. Immediately before he was even released, they said, needs to be a limit on that guy. I mean, it's just, probably it's not going to be a problem, but you never know. Let's limit it. Limit to 1. A spot where I don't see them doing often is changing costs of cards and changing like strength or you know, stuff like that. Like, I don't think we'll see dice ever get changed. It would be a real problem, I think, to be like, all right, I rolled the 3 damage. You're like, no, check the newest rules. That's only a 2 damage. Like, I don't see that happening. I also don't think we're going to see cost changes on cards. I think that's something that in the past FFG has been hesitant to do, and I think it's something probably in the future they'll be hesitant to do. One move that I've seen a little bit of is to say limit 1 per deck. There's a number of cards that have been designed this way intentionally. In the game Lucas designed, Netrunner, they went in and took a really powerful card and said, okay, you can't have 2 per deck anymore, now it's going to be 1 per deck. So that's a possibility as well. It'd be an interesting thing to do in something like Destiny. I personally hate the limit 1 per deck, right? It's like, okay, our way of fixing this card is to make it more random. When you draw it, it's still broken, but it's less broken because it's less likely you'll draw it. I really don't like that approach. I hope we don't see that in Destiny. It's possible that with a 30-card deck, that would be fine, but I just really don't like seeing that approach. Another thing that FFG has done in the past is to make cards unique and to say, like, okay, it's a unique card, so it can only be 1 in play. That's a possibility for any number of cards that could do that for some sort of weapons or for upgrades. The problem is with Star Wars and the way the lore works, we all know what's unique and what's not, right? Like, it'd be really hard to be like, that IQA is unique now. And you're like, what? It's just a gun. Like, no, no, no. It was actually so-and-so's gun. We just didn't name it that way. So it seems unlikely that that will happen. Another place where we don't see much action from FFG is in the straight-out bans. I have only seen 2 cards be banned in all of the FFG games I've played over a long period of time, and they were both early in Game of Thrones 1.0. So we're talking like 5 years ago, maybe longer, maybe 6-7 years ago. And one was just so broken, it was insane. It had like every keyword, way undercosted. It was just like, you just looked at it and went, what was this? And they were like, I don't know, it seemed cool. So that got banned, and eventually the card came back, just reworked at a later date. So that was kind of neat as well. So I think, and another thing that we often see is limiting to factions. So in Game of Thrones, like, if a card was really good, they might say, like, okay, we're going to make that Targaryen only now. Or there was one really cool card, the Long Voyage. You had to have a bigger deck, but it let you draw more. And it was broken in every deck, because every deck could use it. And so they went, okay, it can only be in neutral decks, which are terrible and unplayable. And people are like, oh, that's one way to fix that card. It went from everyone using it to no one using it. And we already see this in Destiny already with, Spot a red, can only be played on a red character. So this is another way that you could see some of these limitations happening. I mean, Holocron to me is the biggest one I could see getting Errata to just say something like, either spot a blue character, which would limit the whole, like, Tusken Raider late game getting Holocrons, or just has to go on a blue character. I could see that happening at some point. It seems like they've gone the other way, which is like, we're not going to release any more good blue abilities for villains. That's insane. And you might say, well, what about Lightning? And I would say, sure, Lightning's good, but have you looked at, like, it costs money to use it every time. They basically said, Holocron exists, so if you got this for free, you're still paying for it. Like, we can't just let you Lightning people all over the place for free. Whereas I think if Holocron didn't exist, it'd cost maybe even 3 and not have pay sides. So Holocron is definitely really limiting in the design space. I could see that getting hit at some time in the future. I don't think it'll be anytime soon. It's certainly not disrupting the meta right now. And in fact, some people have gone so far as to say, like, Beta Raider don't need no Holocron. To those people, I say, you may be crazy. But in the future, you never know. So that's just a little glimpse at how FFG handles problematic cards, problematic situations. If you're new to FFG games, welcome, and hopefully that gave you some insight. So I'll see you next time on Tiny Grimes Games.